Okay, so I'm here in Malmesbury Museum this morning talking with a local artist and keen photographer, Mary Hill, about the Malmesbury artist Peter Harris, who was very much a central character in the art world of Malmesbury in the 1970s through until the turn of the century, I suppose. Mary, what sort of man was Peter?
Peter was quite a difficult man to know. I met him, of course, long before I or he came to Malmesbury. We were students at the West of England College of Art. He was away. We were doing a teaching academic art course, which was a 5-year course, which in this day and age seems quite a long course for art training. However, he had done the first 4 years of this, but hadn't done his final teaching year when he came. And those of us who were there, because it was at the time of the Second World War, of course, and those of us who were there the girls had stayed and done the 4 years continuously. All the young men and boys we were with, they would do the first 2 years and then go away to the forces and then come back again to do the final. So in our final year, the 5th year, Peter and some of the others who'd been called up earlier were coming back, and he joined our group, so we got to know him. He was a legend before he got there. I mean, as were a couple of the others. And so we look forward to meeting these legends from the past, as it were, you know, and he settled in, and we had a hilarious sort of final year there, you know, before we all went our separate ways, doing various things. Peter went to Swindon to begin with, to Swindon College of Art, for a short while, and then he sort of disappeared off the scene, and then we discovered afterwards that he'd gone to the Far East, to Malaysia and Borneo. And that's, in fact, I discovered that because I had applied to do examining work for the Cambridge board, you know, Christmas marking for the overseas work. And they phoned me up one day and said, could I manage to do it this year, because Peter Harris had disappeared to the Far East. They couldn't get in touch with him. So literally, without knowing it, I took over from what he had been doing for the Cambridge board, you know.
Because Peter was, he joined the RAF, and he was a wireless mechanic.
Yes,
out in India, which strikes me as being quite bizarre.
It was bizarre, because I mean, the last person I could have thought we could have competently dealt with wireless was Peter, you know.
So he comes back, he's a teacher in 1947 at the Art College in Swindon, and then 1951 he suddenly becomes the art superintendent for Malaya.
That's right, and that's what he got his award for, the ME.
Yeah.
And then he moved from Malaya into Borneo. He just loved it over there, you know, loved the people, loved the life, had lots of friends, and obviously brought the art life of that area together, you know, and improved it.
And was much revered as well, because he set up the Wednesday group.
Yes, that's right.
In 1952, and was invited back years later.
Yes.
To go and see their work.
Yes, and there was one. I mean, basically, Peter was a painter and a draftsman, but there was one piece of work on a building there, which he designed, a sort of a large, I suppose, metal sculpture almost on the building, which was his one and only, as far as I know, sort of forage into 3D, apart from a bit of pottery he did from time to time, but yes.
And then he came back to teaching in the UK.
That's right, he came back to teaching in the UK, and the first job he got back here was in a comprehensive school in Bristol, which I can't remember which one it was, but it was one of the rather rough areas of Bristol, and I think that was a complete culture shock as far as he was concerned, you know.
Yeah.
But he stayed there for a couple of years, got to know the head of department there, which helped him, was someone we'd both known at art school, you know, contemporaries. She was head of department, so she sort of, but then I mean, his one ambition, apart from his artwork, as I knew him, was to buy King's house in Malmesbury. And he wanted to do that for as long as I could think, which of course he did eventually. I was quite surprised when he sort of gave it up and moved to the house in Gloucester Street, but that was Peter Foyle. You know, he sort of changed his mind, I suppose. No, because there were some family connections here. A cousin of his lived here in Malmesbury, and an uncle of his was farming on the Badminton estate. So he used to come to Malmesbury as a child, to the uncle's farm, and come into Malmesbury, and I think that was where his love of Malmesbury grew, right from the beginning, you know.
And then he ended his teaching career at Sheldon School in Chippenham,
that's right,
which is where I first got to know him.
Yes.
Looking at a lot of his painting, his charcoal and pastels work, it's a beautiful way in which he frames faces and people and time.
Yes, I've got two on my wall, and I was looking at them before I came out, you know, and a very free style, you know. It wasn't a sort of tight drawing, which is very different from, for example, Robin Tanner's style, you know. Yeah. But yes, it was. He seemed to be able to do that with absolute perfect ease, you know, and it was a style which stayed with him all the time. I mean, you know, some artists develop styles and move from one to another, but as far as his drawings were concerned, I think that stayed as it was, because one of the things we did, not at Sheldon, but up at Harden Hewish, where I was teaching in the art department, we went through a phase there where our art department was strong enough to be able to put pupils who were keen artistically into art school without them having to do their initial year. We did it at school, but there were certain requirements that they had to go through, and one of those was to be able to produce life drawings. So we set that up, he and I, between us, and he and I would sit down and draw with the pupils and to criticise their work and tell them how to get on with it. It got us into hot water in the press at one stage. But we weathered that storm. It was the wife of one of our school governors who thought it was terrible that these children were drawing new people, you know. We were talking about, of course, the 17, 18-year-olds in the sixth form after school when all the toddlers had gone home anyway, so, you know. But she had to make an issue of it. It got to the national press and I was interviewed by the Telegraph, you know, what we were doing.
So what was Peter's response to all of that?
Well, I mean, I think that the initial, the final response was in our favour, because Peter and I had been paying the models. We hadn't sort of charged it up to the school or to the county. We had paid for the models for this sitting after school, you know. And when the county got to hear of it, they said, oh, well, let's put it on a proper footing. We will now pay for the models. So we, you know, it came out, it all came out well in the end. But, I mean, it just was, apart from the initial brouhaha locally, I mean, it was water for duck's back, you know, really. Of course, we had, at the time, we also had the pupils at Harden Hewish of two eminent artists. And of course, so we've got when we were, it was some of their children who were doing the life drawing. I mean, Howard Hodgkin's two sons were with us, and Joe Tilson's, the whole of his family were with us, you know, and it was Jake and his sisters who were doing life drawing with us as well. So, I mean, I think our side was stronger than the rather fussy governor's wife, actually, in the end.
But he was a very flamboyant character and a very witty character. And I think that comes through in some of his later works, the dream sequences and some of the little sketches.
Yes, Peter was flamboyant, personified, you know, particularly at art school and things like that. But on the other side of that, there was a sort of sensitivity and almost self-questioning with him all the time, you know, and his character was very volatile. I mean, he could get very down and depressed in moments, and but otherwise he was very generous, very generous person, and influenced by all sorts of different ideas and people. I mean, he came back to England saying he was a confirmed Buddhist. But I mean, that sort of influence wore away, you know. And eventually, of course, by the time of his death, he was a Catholic.
Catholic.
Yes.
Yeah. And tell us about his house, the Gloucester Road house, the schoolhouse.
Oh, the schoolhouse, yes. That was great fun because he decided he was going to paint it. So he painted things all the way up the stairs, lovely murals up the stairs and down the stairs, you know. And that again, he had a lovely room at the back which he used as a studio, which was full of all his work and his his other paintings and drawings and things, stacks and stacks of them. And but they'd spent a lot of time, he and David, sort of sanding shutters and making everything really nice, you know. I mean, it was literally a bit of a tip when he bought it, you know, and bits of it didn't sort of. I mean, the kitchen area downstairs was a bit dark and gloomy, and I don't think he ever really got to grips with the kitchen area to a certain extent. But all the rooms that mattered, you know, they were perfect. And,
but the staircase painting was wonderful because it looked out over mountains and
that's right.
And
yes.
I can remember he painted a fly.
That's it.
With a shadow on it,
yes.
And used to take great pleasure in seeing people try to swat it away as they went upstairs.
Yes, I know. Yes.
And then above that, the sequence of mice.
That's it,
on their way, all with their candle and their night shirts and their little hats.
Going up to the top floor. Yes.
Going up to the top floor, yeah. He was a real character.
Oh, he was absolutely real character, yes. We had very many interesting trips, because he travelled to the Far East, that was his love, you know, but he wanted to travel to other places, and I sort of, we'd been to one or two memorable holidays. For example, a wonderful tour of about 8 days in Ireland, Southern Ireland, not Northern Ireland, and that was visiting all the areas beloved by Yeats, you know, and things like that. And I've got a little book I put together at home. Poor photographs those days because I only had a very cheap camera and the photographs had faded, but I did some drawings and things and picked out, when we got back, extracts of poems by Irish-born poets, you know, and sort of a few illustrations with them, which I gave to him, and then he gave back to me. He said, "You better have it back because I don't know what will happen to it when I'm gone." You know, so I've got it at home now. In fact, it needs new covers. I must put it back together again. Yeah. But if you'd like to see it sometime, I'll show it to you. That was a lovely holiday. That was great fun because he'd been over the year before to visit some friends. And liked it so much, he said, "I want to go again. But I'm not going to go by boat this time because it was too rough and too horrid." So we flew over from Bristol, and that was fun. We had a little nun next to us in the seat. It was a short journey. I didn't realise how tiny she was, and she insisted on sharing her sandwiches with us on the journey. And lovely sandwiches they were. And then we got up to get off the plane, and she was about this high, you know, tiny little person. And that was the sort of start of that holiday, which was magical the whole time. You know. But every village or hamlet you went to had about 3 pubs, and and there was always room at the back for more drinking. You know, we went to Donegal. Peter thought he'd like to see if he could find a Donegal tweed jacket. So he went into this shop which made them but also sold off the peg, and he tried a few on and couldn't make up his mind. And so he said, "I need to think about it." So the shop people said, "Well, when would you be coming back this way, sir?" He said, "Well, we won't be coming back until the evening." "Oh, that's all right," he said. "Just knock on the door, be round the back in the bar." And this went on. A lovely story he had about his first visit there. He hadn't got used to this idea. You went into a pub and you could buy anything or everything, and This was the year before we went, and his friend said, "Oh, you can buy anything at the bar, you know, order the drinks. You can buy a shroud if you want to." So he said, "I don't believe you, I don't believe you." Well, anyway, it got to his round, you see, so he went up to the bar and he said, 2 gins and tonics and a bass or whatever it was, and a shroud, please. "Oh, certainly, sir," he said. "Jesus Christ and the Virgin Mary." And he said, "Oh, I'm Jesus Christ, do you want it black or brown?" And he brought out this horrible sort of satin thing with Christ painted on it with fringes on it. So he bought it. He used to tell that story and produce this shroud. But so that was an action-packed holiday. Then we went to Greece, and we went to the Amalfi Coast, which was great fun. We were accosted there we went staying in a very nice hotel, and they told us that the next village down was a Saint's Day, so it was worth going to see the Saint's Day village. And so we set off, sketchbooks in hand, and to the evening, it was an evening event, and we got this lovely little village, and every cottage had a little sort of wall alcove with a sort of oil lamp there with a light burning in it, and so on and so forth. So we thoroughly enjoyed it. And then the Madonna was brought down the village street and taken down to the sea, which was lovely. So then we were sitting in a pub afterwards, drawing away, you see, and drawing the scene around us. Went back to the hotel fine. Then the next morning, the receptionist behind the bar in the pub said, "Oh, Mr. Harris," he said, "could you come here a moment?" So we went across. He said, "The Chief of Police understands that you were drawing at the festival yesterday." Well, what have we done wrong, you know? Yes, he said. "The Chief of Police is a keen collector of art." He said, "I wonder if one of you would be prepared to donate to him one of your drawings." Now, the Chief of Police obviously wasn't there himself, but we visualised after there must have been a rather eager young constable who wanted who said, "Oh, they were drawing, you see," and so we said yes. So the Chief of Police did actually ask us round for cocktails, but we had other plans which we already booked that evening, so we said, "No, we're sorry, we can't go." So that was all we heard about it until the day we were departing. Oh, and then after that, in the hotel, we were given the best seats in the dining room by the window, you know, and first to be served. Oh, it was really rather nice. And, it was a lovely hotel. It was one of its old ones with lovely painted ceilings and things and big gardens. And so the last day, we packed all our bags and they were loaded onto the coach to go to the airport. We were spending the last few lira, you know, or whatever. And suddenly we were called over to the reception desk again. "Oh, this is from the Chief of Police," and it was a box of gardenias. Of course, all our packing was done, so I had to sit on the flight all the way home with this box of gardenias on my knee.
Lovely stories about a lovely man.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
And much lamented.